coming to you from back home in my yoga space that I love so much and I have found so much comfort in. Um, the cutest bird just landed outside my window. That made me happy. That felt like some confirmation. But I am home from Bali, from Ubud. The last time I hopped on here and talked, I was just ending my 3 days in Sanur alone, and then that morning I was actually heading to Ubud for my yoga retreat with Citizen Yoga. That's who I did my teacher training through. Um, Guess I'll just start off with like the planning for this retreat. So I booked it a year ago, like April 2025, this retreat was announced. And I've always felt the call to go to Bali. And I was just like, I have to go. Like I saw it posted and I was like, I have to go. And like, I was like, really? Like, I can't do this. Like, I can't go to Bali. That's crazy. And I saw that there was only 2 spots remaining for the trip, and I was like, that's it. I booked it and that was it. I was locked in. But then from that, so it was April 2025 until like January 2026, I almost backed out of it like a handful of times. Definitely like so many times I thought I was going to back out of Bali. And I'm so happy I didn't, because I keep joking with everyone that there was a before Bali Bailey and a after Bali Bailey. And even those 3 days in Sanur, like traveling solo by myself, like that was like transformative on its own. And then going into retreat with a bunch of people I didn't know, that was like the big transformative piece there. Um, so I'll just begin. So I did my teacher training through Citizen Yoga, and they do retreats, international retreats, and they do national retreats too. But they posted the Bali one, and I knew the 2 teachers. They were part of my teacher training. So the 2 teachers were the only ones I knew going on retreat. And I was like, I knew this would be a trusted community. I knew I could be safe here because there's just something about the citizen yoga community. Like, if you know, you know, it's just like a really special family. Anyways, I knew this would be like a trusted space because I definitely have always wanted to go to Bali and go to a retreat, but it's kind of intimidating to put yourself out there and to go to a retreat because, like, you would like to think that everybody out there is a good, safe person, but sometimes people aren't in things for the right reasons. And I knew this retreat would feel like home just because the studio feels like home. So that's what drove me to this retreat. I'm so grateful that I spent the 3 days alone to settle into myself, to really kind of go with my own flow, and to really drop into my body and what I want and connect with my heart space and my intuition of and the guidance that it gives me, because I tend to absorb a lot of other people, and maybe that's the people pleaser in me. Maybe that's the just who I've become. I tend to absorb other people's energy. I do go with the flow, and like I am a strong, like independent person, but I'm easily influenced by just the people around me. So I'm so grateful that I spent those 3 days alone to settle into my body, into myself, into my vessel, and my container of Bailey. I didn't know who my roommate was going to be. She ended up being very nice. She's a little older than me, but she was such a sweet soul. So I'm grateful that I had a good roommate. But I went in blind. I just went in with an open heart, with open mind. I just knew Bali would bring the right people together for this situation. I mean, like, how can it not? You know, that was like the magic of Bali working before any of us even arrived there. It was it pulling all these individual souls together as one into like one space. We'll first talk about like the flow of our retreat. So it was 7 days. In the morning, there would be coffee and tea from like 7 a.m. And at 8 a.m., we'd have our morning practice in the yoga shala. I will go ahead and post a picture of the yoga shala here so you could see. But it was so cool to do yoga outside. I've never taken a class outside. I've done yoga outside, like on a back deck or like in a backyard, but I've never done a class in a collective community outside. So that was really cool. And to just be like immersed in the jungle and hear the cicadas and just the natural light. One thing about the yoga shala is there were a lot of bugs. There were lizards. I'm totally fine with the lizards. But there were bugs. There were centipedes every day on the mat, everywhere. At first, I was, appalled by them in the most easy way to say that. But I ended up getting used to them. You just kind of like flick them off and they roll into a little roly poly, and you don't have to like do much. You just got to get them out of the way. Most of the time, they mind their own business, but sometimes they would come on your mat. And you just had to keep an eye out for them. So, doing yoga outside, 10 out of 10. The bugs, I could do without, but it's all part of the experience. We were in the jungle. We knew there was going to be bugs. Like, we knew what we were walking into. And so we do our morning practice, and then we would have a family breakfast. And the food altogether at this place, at this resort that we stayed at, it was called Blue Karma Ubud. Amazing. The staff was so nice. It was a beautiful place. They had a gorgeous pool. I'll put in pictures as I'm saying. The food was so good. The breakfast, though, was my favorite meal of the day. We got breakfast and dinner. So we'd have breakfast, and then after breakfast, we would have free time from like 11 to 4 p.m. And then at 4 would be our afternoon practice. And after that, we would have our dinner, and then that was it. So that was like the flow of retreat every single day. And a lot of the time, people would go off and do things. Like, there were some people that did a lot of excursions, but I hung out at the pool 2 of the full days, and then other days I went into downtown Ubud and explored. And then we did have one group outing to the Saraswati temple. She's a goddess of wisdom, goddess of knowledge, of music, and she is often represented with water. So it was a water temple, and it was gorgeous. It was very hot that day, but it was just so beautiful to be in a sacred place like that. And I'll throw some pictures in for that. So that was our one group outing, but anything other than that was not planned. So that was the flow of each day. And we had opening ceremony in the beginning, our morning practice of the first full day, and then we had a closing ceremony at the end. And these parts were honestly like some of my favorite parts of the retreat, because during the open ceremony, we had like a gorgeous big wooden bowl of water, and they put flower petals in there and essential oils and like rose spray. And we would pass the bowl around, and each person would like sit there with the water element, like digging their hands into the bowl, playing with the petals, just connecting with the elements. And we would share, I think it was an intention for coming to this retreat, and just what we're kind of released. It was kind of just like an open floor, like sharing circle, which like I am such a big fan of sharing circles. Like, that's one of my favorite things. And just like hearing everybody get vulnerable and show up. Like, as themselves, get intentional with like why they're here. I think that intention is so important, especially for an experience like that, just this transformative. I mean, we're on retreat in Bali. Like, of course, it's going to be this transformative experience. So, for people to just like strip it all down and to show up raw and to being vulnerable, that just has such an impact on you, on yourself, on each other. Witnessing other people's vulnerability allows you to like crack open. And like one thing that I've noticed is that like most of the time it's like you're able to relate, or you've gone through that, or you're going through something that someone else is going through, and just being able to talk about our feelings openly and to communicate our needs and to communicate like the things that like back home are so hard to do. I mean, this world is just built to not be the full expressions of ourselves and to be this perfect Instagram worthy life of only showing the good moments. Whereas like retreat, that was just like all stripped away. So this opening ceremony and the closing ceremony, like that was one of my favorite parts of retreat. And I think it's so special that we had that because, like I said, it allowed people to be vulnerable. So then opening with that, just day to day, each moment to moment, each conversation, each practice, each like experience that we all had, it's just we're so vulnerable with each other. And it's so inspiring and so humanizing to remember that we're just all here experiencing life the best we can. And it just cracked me open. It just was like you felt so much love, and like community is so important. So our morning practices would be the spicier, sweatier classes. They would try to do that in the mornings before it got too hot because we're outside. Bali is very warm. Definitely a different climate that I've ever been in, but it felt so good. And we'd have our spicier classes in the morning, movement, connecting with fire, playful, all of that. I really enjoyed the morning classes, but I also really enjoyed the late classes because those ones were the more slowed down, easy going. Like, we're not trying to sweat too much and just restorative yin. So, like, the morning was the yang and the evening was the yin. And that balance of both classes was really nice. And then the teachers would flip. So we would have one of them teach the morning and then one of them teach the night class. And then the next day it would be reversed. So the other one would teach the morning and the other teacher would teach the night class. And it was so fun to watch their different personalities bloom in each setting. And it was really inspiring as a teacher because to just see them like I said, show their personalities and their different styles of class and the way they cultivate a class and carry the energy of the class and work with people and move. And I don't know, it was very inspiring as a teacher to just be myself fully. And like that's what makes classes fun because like both of them were just like so themselves and so vulnerable as teachers, like with us. And it just made the energy of class so light and so freeing and fun. Like we were on retreat. Felt really special. I've never been on a yoga retreat, but it felt different than just being in a yoga class. And we did a lot of partner work, which I really enjoyed. I haven't really had my own practice since I started teaching 3 months ago, and I've been struggling with that. Now I'm just like in this teacher mode, and when I'm practicing, I'm just planning for my classes that I'm going to teach for the week. So I wasn't really being a student, and it was just, it did something different with my perspective on classes, because even when I would do a class at home, I'm just like looking at it with a lens of like how I'm going to teach this, or like how I'm going to remember this to be that for my students, instead of just having a practice that I move through that feels good in my body, that feels like an expression of myself, that feels like my personality. It was just like I was so disconnected with that sense in my teaching, like that connection to myself. Like, I love yoga so much and I love the practice so much. And the reason I started yoga is because it made me feel so good inside and made me feel so level headed and creative and strong and in my body. But ever since I started teaching more consistently, I'm more in my head, where the whole point of practice, of yoga practice, is to get out of your head and to get into your body. So I knew I had this disconnect going in, and I was just so excited to be a student again. And I'm going back with so much inspiration in myself as a student, and just like my love for the practice is so much deeper than it was. It was like I remember the reason why I started it all in the first place, which I'm grateful for. So I knew this would be a transformative experience. And the reason that I wanted to go on this trip is that I knew this would lead to greater expansion. Every decision that I'm making this year is to expand myself more. Like, at home, being around the same people I'm always around, my friends, my boyfriend, my family, you fall into patterns. And it's because you're comfortable, because you're happy, and these patterns are the normal. And it's easy to just do the same thing because that's what you're comfortable for. But I have this like deep yearning to have connections with people that are more like me. And I never am more, and when I say more like me, I just mean leaning into expansion. And I never really felt that until my teacher training I did a year ago. And I never really felt that type of sangha, that type of soul connection with so many people, where we would just like sit around all day and like talk about like philosophy and deeper meaning to things and just beliefs and ideas. And again, it was just like the vulnerability was like stripped down, and we were just like raw and honest and human about it all. So I knew going into retreat that I was going to get that same type of container to unravel in. But being in that space, I knew I would be challenged. I was one of like the younger ones there. I mean, the people at retreat age from my age, like 28, 27 to, I mean, people in their 50s, if not older. Honestly, I think there are some in their late 60s, 70s, which is crazy to travel to Bali. I mean, like, good for them. And like, they do yoga, so their bodies felt good. But to be at that age and to still be choosing yourself is just such something I look up to, and it was really inspiring. And to show up at retreat alone, like, that's so inspiring. And to be able to be experiencing that at this age, at 28, like, I am just so proud of myself. I'm so proud of myself for choosing myself now, for doing the hard things, for taking this solo trip, taking the leap, and to like lean into expansion. I'm not saying the people there, but like so many people like later down in life, like look back and they're like, oh, I wish I did that. Or like, I've done that, lived all these years, but I've never done the thing I wanted to do. And for me to be able to say that I did that thing now, I am just forever grateful. And I feel so transformed, everybody needs to be doing this. Everybody needs to be taking the leap. Like, take action towards what you desire. To when your dreams like leave your imaginative head space to like actually bring it into real life, to manifest it into the real life. Just like we have to do that. And it's like I feel like so often people lose the sense that like we are in control of that, that we have like the full audacity, the full autonomy to make our dreams and to make our desires happen in reality. I realize that this video is like kind of just going to be all over the place because this is just like a stream of consciousness and like my reflections from Bali and how I'm feeling since being home. So there's really no like rhyme or reason to this. I'm kind of just talking. And I hope there's some rhyme and reason by the end of this. So let's just stick in this together. I think at one point I was talking about the partner work that we did. I forgot how much a hands-on assist deepens your practice. How like the simple adjustment, the simple touch from a teacher can just like change the whole experience in your body. Like, what did I write here? My shoulders and upper body feels like my wings have room to expand. Unlocking these new sensation, these new pathways, these new positions that we can't always get to in our own. And that's the beauty of retreat. And that's the beauty of community, is that you can't always do things alone. As much as you'd want to, as much as I can like sit here and write my feelings out into my journal and spill everything that's going through my head, sometimes one conversation with someone makes all of this land. Like all of this twisted knots, it makes it like into a straight line and you can understand. So partner work was definitely one of my favorite things about retreat. There are so many things I loved about retreat. I think what made the conversation so juicy and so full of insight and wisdom is because we were all just open and vulnerable with each other. And that's just so hard to access today. And it's even hard to be vulnerable with our close circle sometimes. Like sometimes the people that know us the best and know us too well, it's almost hard to be vulnerable with them because they know our patterns just as much as we do. They witness them from their perspective. So to be around people that don't really know you and are just seeing you as you are, showing up in the present moment, raw, vulnerable, it made me feel so seen. And that was one of the things like I did not expect getting out of retreat, is that I would feel so validated in who I am. The first day, the first like night and the first day, I was struggling a little bit. Like I caught myself like overthinking conversations and like I said, feeling like the odd man out. But then I realized that and I softened it. I realized that like this is all in my head. This is not reality. And I was able to soften in that. And by the end of retreat, my nervous system has never felt so at ease, so calm, and I have never felt so seen in who I am and who my heart is. And that's why this has been so transformative, because I remember who I am and what my heart is and what my heart wants. And I was able to access this part of me that I've closed off and that I've put into a box, and just layer upon layer of other expectations of others, or like what I think I need to be doing. And I was able to just like peel it all back. Like I said, with each practice, each partner pose, each conversation, each smile, each shared moment, I was able to peel that back and be my full authentic self. And after that first day, like there was no overthinking, there was no second guessing. It was just like showing up raw and in the moment. Like I said, it's sometimes so hard to be that part of yourself around your normal circle because they already have years and years and years of an understanding of you. They have years of a perception that they have of you. But like the truth is, their perception of you or their understanding or what they expect or think of you is not you. Your perception of yourself isn't even you. What you are is just like who you are in the moment, who you are showing up as. And that was one of the things I unraveled during retreat. Like I just like I said, I felt myself like crack open with each second I spent there, just shedding away this wall that I've built up. So to talk about Ubud a little bit and the things I did then. I loved Ubud. I loved Sanyor, but I am such a jungle girly, and to be in the jungle, there's so much greenery, and I just loved it. I loved Ubud so much. So a couple things that I did, I hung out by the pool one of the two of the days, which was like very needed. Another day I went down into Ubud, the craziness of it all. There are no stop signs. There are no stop signs. There are no traffic lights. And like there is just like a controlled chaos to the traffic there. And it's so terrifying. I would never be able to drive in it. But someone pointed out how this, like I said, controlled chaos. There's just like a rhythm to it. There's no stop signs, but like they know when they need to go. They communicate. And it's because they have such an undeniable respect for each other and no one's yelling. Like no one's like mad that this person went in front of them when this person was supposed to go, or there's none of that. None of that that we experience at home. You don't witness it there. They're just so communicative, just even driving their cars in the traffic. It was really inspiring to see, needless to say. So Ubud madness, very crazy, very chaotic, but I loved it. I love the hustle and bustle of the city. I went to a yoga clothes store, Indigo Luna. It was so cute. It's like all organic material. I loved it. Did some shopping. I went to the Ubud Monkey Forest, which that was like one of the things on my list. So grateful that I did that because the monkeys are just like free roaming around and you're just like walking through their home and they're so cute. There were so many babies. I love them. I was obsessed. I think I have like over 15 videos on my phone of monkeys. I'm so happy I did that. I did that with a group. So I went downtown shopping with like a group of girls and then went to the monkey forest with a group of girls. And then I one other thing that I really wanted to do was the rice terraces. And that day I just went by myself, which was refreshing because at that point I think we were like 5 days into retreat and to just like go off by myself was really nice because like I said, I love like being around people. I love chatting. I love being in community. So once we were in the container of retreat, I was immersing myself in that, connecting with people and like taking what taking full advantage of being around people, being around new people, and expanding myself, expanding my connections. My Saturn return is happening in my 11th house, which is of your community, your friendships. I'm really leaning into that. So I'm very happy I went into the rice terraces by myself. That was a refreshing little break of solitude. I walked the rice terraces and then like on the other side there's a little cafe. I got a coconut, like a fresh coconut. I'll post a picture and I sat at this little cafe like overlooking the terraces and I journaled. And that was refreshing because I was allowed to, like, I was craving that alone time. I was craving that inner space with myself. that solitude to reflect on everything that was happening of retreat, the practices, all of it. I did do my pages every single day, but it was just nice to do something alone. And like honestly, I like doing things by myself. Going downtown and going shopping with a group, it was like nice, but it was also like a little overwhelming because like I said before, when you're traveling with other people, and doing things with other people, you're moving as a group, as a collective, and when you're by yourself you're able to just go wherever you want. Just being able to move at your own free will and not really have to think about others is really comfortable. Honestly, it just makes things really nice. So I'm happy I went to the rice terraces by myself. So those were all the day activities that I did. The other days I just rested by the pool. I think I went into town one more time after that because I wanted to go back to the yoga clothes store. Then one of the days as a group, we went to this sound bath at this place called the Pyramids of Chi. It's a pyramid that's 1/16th of the size of the ones in Egypt. And they did like full sound bath experience. It was about an hour long and we laid there. We all got these like weighted eye masks that we actually got to take home with us, which was really cool. A nice little souvenir. But they had gongs and triangles and flutes, and the guy even sang a little bit, and also a didgeridoo, which that was like so funny to hear in person. Like I've definitely heard that in music and in songs before, but like the coolest part about this sound bath is like it was all live. It was all real time, and during each different instrument slash tool, I was getting different visuals to everything. The sound bath was amazing. It was so relaxing. You were like kind of like in and out of this like meditative state where it's like you're kind of asleep, but you're kind of conscious of it. You're tapped into like the theta state of your mind. So I've never had a song bath experience like that. I've gone to a yoga nidra with a gong, which was really cool, but this was just like next level. I would recommend. That was in Ubud. The cool thing about the Pyramids of Chi is when I was watching YouTube videos of like things to do in Ubud before I went, I saw this on YouTube and I'm like, whoa, I really want to go to this. It ended up being right across the street from our resort. And then we went as a group there, which was really nice. So that was another group outing. One of the other group things we did is they had a local healer, so a Balinese healer, come to the retreat, and we had a fire ceremony on the new moon in Aries, which new moons are all about planting intentions and seeds that we want to see grow with the moon cycle. As the moon is dark, you plant your seeds. So then as the moon gets lighter and brighter and more full, your seeds come into manifestation. That was really special to be guided by a local healer, to be connected with, the local people, the Balinese and the land, and just to hear her wisdom that she shared with all of us was really special. And I enjoyed it. For the ceremony, they had us write, let me see, I wrote it down. What would you like to renew in your life? And we all wrote it down on a piece of paper and we went around, threw it into the fire, and we did this like hand motion, kind of release it, and it just burned, and it was a really cool ritual. And I've done rituals like on my own, so to do one with a local healer and with a collective group, that was just really magnetic and really powerful, really transformative. Some of my biggest takeaways of this experience is to give yourself the space to unravel, to give yourself the space to question yourself, to question your patterns, to soften into the edges of yourself that makes life so rigid. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I even almost forgot about talking about this. So, I've been trying really hard to get comfortable with moving in my body, kind of like in an ecstatic dance way. Like, I've never really had a sense of rhythm, and my body just feels uncomfortable. And it doesn't feel uncomfortable like once I witness other people doing things and I'm like, oh, that looks nice, I'm gonna try that. But I just like didn't really know how to move intuitively in my body. And so during retreat, we connected a lot to the elements, connecting a lot with water, which is fluid and ever forming, and you just flowy. That's very intuitive. And to connect with that allowed me to like soften a bit into that. And I noticed back in December, I went to a workshop and I noticed that I had this rigidness in me that I didn't know how to move. But one of the practices, we had a dance party. I was able to just like, it was such a release that like at the end of practice I was crying. After that, like after that practice and then the other practices following, I was just crying every practice. Like I said, we were vulnerable, we were open. It was just the fullest, rawest versions of ourselves. It was such a release because I felt like I was able to just move freely. I feel like it was hard for me to do because I had this fear of being seen, which I've been actively trying to dissolve that fear. And after that dance party, it just felt like it was gone. Like it just like burnt up into the embers of all the Aries placements, all the fire placements. It just like burnt it up. And I almost felt like reborn, feeling good in my body, and I was able to move. And like I said, it was such a release. The rigidness inside me dissolved. That was so freeing. Even being home and practicing since then, I feel this free form movement inside me. And I'm just so grateful for that because that's something I've been actively trying to work through. The retreat space like gave me that space to discover that part of me. The whole thing, it was just like it's so hard to put into words. Like I thought this video would be easy, but it's so hard to describe how I'm feeling because it was such a transformative experience. It was such a release. And I just have never felt so myself. My nervous system has never felt so easy and so calm. And I'm just so grateful that I did this, that I took the leap, that I took this step, because this is going to be something that I look back on like for the rest of my life. And I remember this burning away and this rebirth of like rising from the ashes, of like this remembering, this shedding of all of this stuff that was weighing me down and holding me back, and negative toxic patterns that just like I completely outgrew, and I'm just like reborn into this full, authentic, creative, embodied version of myself. If anything, I hope people can take this as an inspiration to choose themselves, to take the leap, to put themselves out there. I think I have such a strong understanding of what it means to lean in towards expansion because that's something I'm actively trying to work to. But I think it's often hard for people to even know that expansion exists because, like I said in the beginning of this, when we're in our routines and surrounding ourselves with the same people in the same environment, doing the same thing, falling into these patterns, we get comfortable. And to put yourself in an uncomfortable, unfamiliar situation, it just leads to greater expansion. And isn't that the whole point of being here and being human, is to be an ever evolving version of ourselves? And what this retreat did for me is stripped it all down. Like I said, burnt it away, and I rise from the ashes, just reborn as in this full expression of myself. Everything from before, like it doesn't matter. Even the future doesn't matter because what matters now is the present moment. And in the present moment, we have the full audacity to be whoever we want to be, to do whatever we want to do, to make whatever we want to happen come true. So to be this full expression of me, to be validated and seen and to feel validated and seen in this full expression of me has led to greater expansion. So I just encourage everybody to question things, to reflect on themselves, and to see what they can do to expand. What can you do to evolve? What can you question? Like, what things can you introduce to your life that are unfamiliar or might be uncomfortable, but it's for the best? So I love Bali. I didn't want to leave. I miss the fresh food every day. Being home, I'm just like eating food and it just like does not make me feel as good as it did in Bali. That's just one thing about like the harmonization of that island, of the people living off the land, using all these natural products. I got a facial one of the days, and the ingredients she used yogurt to like wash my face, then used oatmeal as like an exfoliator, then used rice and lemon as a mat, like no, rice and honey as a mask, and then yogurt again to wash it off, and cucumber to hydrate. Like these people are just living off of what is around them, and you can feel it. You can feel the difference. You can feel the difference in the food. You can feel the difference in the Balinese people there. Like there's just so much respect, and it's because they respect each other, they respect their land, and that's something that we here in America have become so disconnected from. We're so disconnected from nature, and it's dysregulating. And being there was, I was able to soften, to regulate my nervous system, to feel into myself. It's really inspiring because I've come home with this new perspective and this new purpose to find harmony here back home, within myself, within nature, within the food I eat. It's just a whole, like I said, there's a before Bali Bailey and an after Bali Bailey. So we shall see where she goes. The whole experience was worth it, and I wouldn't change a thing about it, and I wouldn't trade anything in the world for it. So I'm just so grateful. So thank you for hanging with me. I hope this was something you can follow. And if you're still here, I love you so much. Thank you.